Episode 163 of the podcast. This week we are talking about the business end of grooming dogs with behavior issues. And you might be thinking, oh, well, I'm not a groomer and I don't own a business, so I don't need to listen to this one. But this one's for the pet owners and for the other animal professionals out there because I want you to understand how a behavior problem can totally impact your business. You should not be losing money working on challenging dogs. Find out more this week. You're listening to the Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast. I'm Chrissy Neumeier-Smith. I'm a certified professional groomer, a certified behavior consultant for canines, a grooming instructor at Whole Pet Grooming Academy, where I also teach my online program, Master Groomer Behavior Specialist, and I'm the owner of Happy Critters in Nashua, New Hampshire. And this, my friends and colleagues, is the podcast where grooming and training meet. I'm going to start this week with the idea that behavior problems during dog grooming are when dogs get hurt, people get hurt, and equipment gets broken, and customers get upset. So let's start right there. Let's think about, behavior problems are when dogs get hurt, people get hurt, equipment gets broken, and customers get upset. So as a groomer, if you are trying to make a living, you don't want any of those things to happen. That's going to impact your business. I mean, you don't want to hurt dogs and you don't want to be hurt, but let's just talk about just the numbers. This week, we're going to crunch the numbers. We're going to talk about how this affects your living. So as a vet, as a dog trainer, as a pet sitter, or a dog walker, you guys need to listen to these things too, because you don't want any of these things to happen either. And it will affect your business. Not that you're doing the same kind of things that dog groomers are, but still, behavior problems are when dogs get hurt, people get hurt, equipment gets broken, and customers get upset. And the thing is that accidents happen. But if we are working with animals who have behavior problems that we're not working on, I ask you, is it more likely that an accident's going to happen? And let's really think about that. Is it more likely? Yeah, it's so much more likely that an accident's going to happen because a behavior problem is just like a ticking time bomb, okay? It's going to happen. And accidents happen far more often than we may be aware of because we're only looking at our own little center of the world, our own little business, our own dog, and not really thinking about how often things happen. And each time a dog gets hurt, a person gets hurt, equipment gets broken, or customers get upset, these things cost a business owner money. There is a cost to that. There is a monetary value to that. And we can break that down into dollars. Now, of course, we don't want dogs to get hurt, but we are in business. This is a business, and we need to really think about why helping dogs through their behavior problems is better business for us. So I think if you're listening to the podcast, you're probably already on board with teaching dogs to be more comfortable with things, but you may be talking to an owner or to another business owner or to a manager or to an employee about why this is important. So sometimes being able to break it down from the business angle is going to be how you reach someone else. Is to break it down into, listen, I need to be able to do this safely, and it's better business if I do it safely. But let's take a moment right now and picture a dog who's having a hard time being groomed. Whatever that looks like on your table, in your tub, in front of your other customers, okay? But picture a dog in your setting. Now, if you're not a dog groomer, that's fine. Picture a dog that, maybe you have to take care of at your daycare, or as you're a pet sitting and you're supposed to be giving medication or trying to brush this dog. Think about what you have to do and picture that dog and the kind of difficulty you have around this behavior problem. Picture how it plays out. I want this to be a real scene for you. Picture how it plays out. Now, I ask you, would you groom that dog at a discounted rate? Would you be like, oh, you know what? I'll just do a discount because he has behavior problems? Of course not. Of course not. If you think about the dog that really is having a hard time making your job much more difficult, you would not do that dog at a discounted rate. And let me ask you something. Would you groom that dog for free? Would you do that brush out for free? Would you offer your services for free for that dog with the behavior problem that we're not working on? I'm thinking most of you would say, no, no, I would not. Now, my third question, would you pay to do that dog? Would you pay to groom that dog? The dog that, as a groomer, is trying to hurt you, running around, trying to fling itself off the table, the dog that is really, really likely to get hurt, to hurt you, to break your equipment, to make unhappy customers. Would you pay to groom that dog? And no, of course you wouldn't. Yet, and here's where it comes in, my friends, yet you are. And let me tell you why. As soon as a dog is injured, if you have to pay a vet bill, you have just done that dog for free or you have paid out. Now, I know a lot of owners are going to say, oh, but you have insurance. You bet. I do have business insurance, but I believe my deductible, I mean, everybody's different. I believe my deductible is $500. So I'm not going to put in a claim unless it's significantly over that. How many $500 grooms do I do? None. So if I have to pay vet bills in excess of like hundreds of dollars, I just paid my money to do that dog. And you can say, but the owner paid. The owner did pay, but not nearly as much as I paid out. So I want you to think about it. And often if a dog is injured, we don't charge them. And I'm on board with that. I mean, totally. If it's my fault, However, I only put myself in those situations with owners who are actively working on their behavior problem, with owners who are on board that we need to be able to teach this dog to be more comfortable with it. We have realistic expectations. There are realistic expectations because the likelihood of a dog getting injured while a behavior problem is happening is really, really high. And you, as a business owner, if you have to pay a vet bill, you have just probably paid more than you made. So I want you to think about that. From a perfectly business point of view, you would have been better off when they said, oh, he has behavior problems, but we have such a busy life. And, the kids are getting older. We just don't really have time to work on this. You would have been better off saying, here's $50. Go find somebody else to do it. You would have been better off because by the time you pay hundreds of dollars in vet bills. So think about it. We are often losing money when we work with dogs with behavior problems that are not on any sort of a plan to become better. And I say a plan to get better because we can get in there and do some training. We can insist that they work with a trainer, that they do some homework. We can insist on the scheduling, breaking things down. Let's do some brush out appointments. Let's do some nail trim appointments. We're not going to try to do every darn thing in one sitting every 6 months. There are lots of ways that we can manage the expectations and keep everybody safe. Working on behavior problems is about keeping everyone safe. So that's one of the ways that we often lose money by grooming dogs with behavior problems. And that's one of the things you can tell owners, like, listen, I'm sure you're thinking, I just paid $20 for a nail trim. It's good money. However, if it took 2 people and the dog got injured, and it took half an hour and we paid a vet bill, your $20 was nothing. It was nothing. Like, that means nothing to me. Oh, goody, $20, So when we talk to our owners, we have to really emphasize safety. This is about safety. I do not want your dog to get hurt. Not just because I don't want dogs to get hurt. That's not why I'm in this business. But also, there's no money for me to make if your dog gets hurt. I literally make nothing and often end up paying more. I'm not going to pay out to groom somebody's dog. So that's one of the ways we can word this. Now, here is another topic for us. Behavior problems are when dogs get hurt and people get hurt. If you are injured grooming a dog with behavior problems, if you get injured, how does that affect you making money? Okay, let's really think about this. Really think about it. Maybe it's just like a little nick or something, or maybe you just pulled your shoulder a little bit. But What if it means that the rest of your day you have to cancel? The rest of the day, you're like, shoot, I couldn't finish this dog. I can't finish the rest of the dogs. How much money did you make that day? What did you make? What did this dog and this dog's behavior problem that caused your injury, what did this cost you? And I want you to really think about the numbers because I find that this is where many of us eventually say, nope, I'm going to take behavior very, very seriously from here on out because we end up with an injury or we end up getting injured a couple of times and we're like, never again. And I don't want that to happen. If that hasn't happened to you yet, if you haven't had your moment where you're like, oh my God, am I going to have to think of another field to go into because this dog just injured my hand? Am I going to be able to groom again? I want you to think about it now before it happens to you. And there are lots and lots of stories of it happening. So if you are injured, you have very likely lost money grooming that dog. Not only did you not make anything, not only did you not make much, you didn't make anything, you probably lost money grooming that dog. So sometimes that's what we need to remember. Like, wait a minute, am I going to lose money grooming this dog? Because I'm not in this business to lose money. How can I make sure that I'm still going to make money grooming this dog? And that's where we start getting into talking to owners about our safety policy, making sure that they understand that we have to work on the behavior aspect and they need to be a part of that so that we can groom safely. This is about safety. And if we get hurt, we lose money. We'll talk more about that in the next half. If you're enjoying this podcast, please remember to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes and tell all of your friends. I want to talk more about how we lose money if we get hurt. Because I know that we often think about that day and that particular dog. Or what if it's a huge disaster and we're permanently injured? But there's a middle ground here too. And I want you to think about the people you have to reschedule because you were injured. What if you have customers who are really upset by that? And we hear it a lot. You know, customers will say, oh, I'm so sorry you got hurt, but certainly you're going to be here to groom Buffy, right? I mean, Bella needs her haircut. You have to do it. Like, move everybody else. Don't move me. They're going to be upset. And we see it a lot. And if you get hurt, it's not that they're being mean. It's not that your customers don't love you, but they're going to go and find somebody else. And it happens. It happens a lot. Don't let that one dog who has a behavior problem, whose owners aren't interested in working on it, don't let that ruin your business. But also think about all the other customers that now are going to be put out because you're injured. They're going to be upset. Now it's all the other owners for the rest of that week. And that costs us money. So maybe you missed work. Now you have a day of work that you missed, angry customers, or 2 days of work. Maybe it's a week worth of work. What if you have an injury to your hand that required some stitches or bandaging and you can't get your hand wet for a week and you can't really do much of anything? You now have to reschedule a week worth of people and they're going to be mad. And they might be sympathetic, but they're still going to be upset. Now, let's talk about another way that behavior problems affect your other customers and affect your bottom line. Let's say you are in a shop setting and a dog is having a hard time being groomed, and another owner watches you grooming this dog having a hard time and decides, I don't want that to happen to my dog. Whether their dog has a hard time or not, they're going to see what is happening on that table and they're going to make some decisions about, does that seem safe to me? Do I want my dog in that kind of an environment? You might lose customers just because of that, and that costs you money. And the customers who watch something like that and think, I don't want that for my dog, are probably really conscientious people that you do want to have as customers. They're the ones who are going to say, hey, you know what? Take it slow, do gentle. I really just want him to be healthy and clean. That's my most important thing in this world. Those are people you do want. We don't want to have them thinking that bad things happen in the grooming shop. And you might say, well, that doesn't really happen. So let me tell you, as a house call groomer, Those are a lot of the people who call me about house call because they don't want to drop their dog someplace where they can't see what's happening. They're very, very suspicious because they hear these stories where they see the one video online of a dog that's freaking out. And that's a lot of the time why they decide house call might be a better choice for them. They want to stay and watch. They want to be able to see everything that happens. And it's not fair to us as groomers, but it's a very real concern for a lot of our owners. So the dog that's on your grooming table, you might be thinking, I can just push through this groom. Let me just hold on to him tight. I'm trying to get these things done. I'm going to be working on you. You're okay. Everything's fine. And you may be really, really patient with a dog who's alligator rolling. But if you're letting him alligator roll, other customers are watching you and they're saying, I do not want my dog to have that kind of a situation. So sometimes we lose money by losing customers. And they didn't say anything to us. They're like, she seems really, really nice, but I'm not gonna have my Bella dropped off there ever again. Because I don't know what happens behind closed doors and I don't want Bella to be like that. So behavior issues affect your business and your bottom line and the way that you make money in some really interesting ways. So even if that's part of your customer's concern, is how other dogs are being treated, or the dog that's screaming and they watch their own dog start to cower in the waiting room because they hear a dog screaming. I'm going to draw a parallel here, and it's very anthropomorphic, but imagine you as a little kid going to the dentist, and maybe the dentist was always neutral, like, oh, okay, I don't mind going to the dentist, not a big deal. But you hear another little kid screaming in terror. Now you're thinking, what is happening over there? As a little kid listening to another kid scream in terror, you would be nervous. And I think we can observe that in our dogs. They're hearing another dog having a really hard time, and they all start cowering a little bit in the back of their crate, like, ooh, I don't know what's happening over there, but Sparky's not having a good day, and I see what the groomer's doing. And, our owners know that. They see it too in the waiting room, and they might not be good at understanding what they're seeing, but they're like, my dog seems nervous, and I don't think I want to leave him here. So that affects our reputation, which affects our bottom line. We are in business. So when we talk about things like calm, comfortable, cooperative, that's the mantra on this show, calm, comfortable, and cooperative. We need to set a goal for teaching dogs to relax for this and make it a priority. We need to work on the behavior problem so that we avoid all of these things. We want these dogs to be successful. We want these dogs to have a pleasant experience. We want to be able to teach them to be good so that we can do our best work. And we need to prevent injuries to dogs and to people. Now let's move on to when equipment gets broken. Because equipment getting broken can totally change how much money you make. And we often don't tally it up that way. We think, well, we made this much from grooming that dog and, this equipment got broken. But every time you groom a dog and they destroy a piece of equipment, I want you to subtract that from what you made from them so that you can think it through. Like, wait a minute, if I charged $85 for this particular grooming and a $200 pair of clippers just hit the floor and broke, maybe you can get them repaired, but you still have to use your backup clippers if those weren't your backup clippers, right? I mean, $200 for a pair of clippers. If you're not a dog groomer, I'll tell you, that's not big money for clippers. That's probably a pretty average mid-grade pair. So big money for clippers goes much, much higher than $200. So if you're thinking, well, wait a minute, I didn't make any money on that dog. Yeah, you're right. You did not make money on that dog. Now, as an owner, the owners may be thinking, well, I paid good money. And you did, but you didn't pay enough to offset the damage your dog did. And we're not going to charge our owners, usually anyway, we're not going to charge our owners for the things that dogs damage. I know sometimes we might. If they totally insisted their dog is totally fine and it turned out to not be true, that's when it would be very tempting. But that's part of why we take a history. That's part of why we talk to our owners. Be specific with them. Find out what their dog is like. Because if we find ourselves in a situation where the dog is now frantic, I want to be able to stop, because we already talked about our safety policy, and this is not a safe situation before any of my equipment gets broken. But if your equipment gets broken, what kind of cascading effect does that have on your work week? What happens? How many 30 blades do you have? Let's start off there. What if it's just a matter of a blade got damaged? How many more do you have? How is that going to affect the rest of your work week? Because, as I hope you are, you're sanitizing your blades in between and cleaning things in between. So how does that affect the rest of your day? Because I don't know about you, but I try to have enough blades so that I don't have to go and do the cleaning process in between all of the dogs, because that kind of is a time suck. I'd rather do that at the end of the day and just a fresh new blade with each individual dog. But dogs that start damaging your equipment, it's going to affect your day. It's going to affect your timeline. What if it's your table? What if your table gets damaged? It's not raising and lowering because some dog decided to jump off and you caught the dog, but the table went over and now it's not raising and lowering. Something happened to it. It's going to cost you money. Replacement costs, repair costs. These things are not something we should have to worry about when we're grooming a dog. When you are styling a pet, you should not have to worry about how your equipment's going to be damaged. Because the average dog who is good for grooming is going to stand there and let you do whatever you need to do. And if all of our dogs are learning to be good and we're not pushing them so far that they can't handle it, there's a lot less risk of injuries to dogs, injuries to people, equipment getting broken, and customers getting upset because they're being good and we can do our best work. So if we teach them to be good, very rarely does something happen to your equipment with a dog who's being really good. There are lots of things that will affect our bottom line. We need to make money. That's what we're here for. Unresolved behavior problems are a ticking time bomb. It will eventually cost you money. So even if it hasn't yet, oh no, this dog, I've always been able to manage him. At some point, one of those dogs that you think, I can manage him, he's going to be fine. Just push him through it. At some point, you are going to injure a dog, get injured, have equipment get broken, upset all of your customers. So think about it. Think about it now, because if we frame it out as safety for our owners, then our owners are going to understand why we're not trying to do perfect trims on dogs with behavior problems and what the bigger picture is. If you'd like more information, you can find me at Chrissy@happycritters.net, happycrittersdogtraining.com, or you can join the Facebook group Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast or the Facebook page Creating Great Grooming Dogs. I really look forward to hearing from you. If you're ready to go beyond the podcast, and I hope you do, I've made it really easy for you. If you go to creatinggreatgroomingdogs.com and click on your next step, you'll see all of the options. There's the Scholar Lounge community, there's the Modern Grooming Professional Certification, there's Master Canine Stylist and Professional Canine Stylist Diploma testings, there's the Behavior Lab for coaching and private one-on-one sessions with me, and of course, the Master Groomer Behavior Specialist program. So go to creatinggreatgroomingdogs.com and click on your next step.